Welcome to the Maine Real Estate Roundtable podcast. I'm Bobbie Grenier, your trusted guide to navigating the world of real estate in Maine. Get ready to debunk mortgage myths, unravel real estate mysteries, and learn tips to avoid costly mistakes. Whether you're an industry pro, an overwhelmed buyer, confused seller, or simply curious about life in Maine, this is the podcast for you. Welcome to the Maine Real Estate Roundtable podcast. I am your host, Bobbie Grenier, and I'm so happy that you're here today. Today, we have a very important episode for you. We're focusing on safety, specifically the safety of real estate agents and how to stay safe in an industry where you're often alone and in remote and unfamiliar locations, and more often than not with clients that you may not know that well. But please, this information is something that all women need to hear. So if you're not in the real estate industry, please stick around, and I promise you will thank me. So in this episode, I am so excited to be joined by Autumn Clifford. Autumn's a former police officer, she's a safety expert, and the founder of She's an Asset. She has dedicated her career to empowering women with the knowledge and techniques to keep themselves safe, and I'm incredibly excited to have her on the show and to share her expertise and insights. So my company did a professional development and safety class with Autumn a few months ago, and the class was amazing, and I just really want to bring you all in on this. She's going to be providing us with some practical techniques and tips on how to keep ourselves safe, especially in an industry like real estate where women often find themselves in potentially dangerous situations. We're going to discuss situational awareness, self-defense, and the empowerment that comes from being prepared and informed. And the purpose of this interview is because I care deeply about the safety of women in our industry and all women, and I want to use this platform to be able to provide you all with valuable tools and knowledge. And situational awareness is definitely the first and maybe the most important step to keeping ourselves safe. Autumn's going to guide us through what that means and how we can implement that in our daily lives. Hi, Autumn. Thanks for joining me today.
Happy to be here, Bobbie.
Awesome. We've been trying to put this together for a while, and you are a busy lady with a lot going on. So I know you, and I've been to one of your professional development trainings. But for those that don't, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah. So thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here. My name is Autumn Clifford, and I run a women's self-protection company, and we focus on situational awareness. But I haven't always done that, and let me tell you how I got here. So I've been in the martial arts since I've been 5 years old. I have a second-degree black belt. I have trained and competed all over New England and as well as internationally. I tell everybody one of the highlights to my martial arts career is meeting Chuck Norris. um, and I have been teaching in the martial arts since I've been 12 years old. I've taught children from 3 years old up to adults 70 plus. I went on and became a police officer when I was 20 years old. Um, while I was a police officer, I became a defensive tactics instructor at the Maine Criminal Justice Academy, which is pretty cool because I get to teach cops, how to fight. I was on Maine's first federal human trafficking task force, which was incredible. And then I got injured. I got injured in the line of duty when I was just 26 and a half, and I hit a rock bottom, and I didn't know what I was going to do because I have a master's degree in criminal justice. And let me just tell you about the whole two things you can do with a master's in criminal justice. It's you can get promoted or you can teach. And luckily, I've been able to make that transition to teaching. I'm an adjunct college professor, but that was really hard. I'm kind of skipping over it just to not take up a ton of time. But, it was really hard. I was couch ridden for 6 months because of my back injury. And I had to essentially kind of reinvent myself. From there, I started a life coaching company. I've been coaching women all over the world for 8 years as my main job. I built that company from my couch, and I turned it into focusing on female first responders because they really don't have and a lot of support in the field, male dominated industry. I know a lot of women listening to this can relate to that. And then from there, I just kind of fine-tuned it and focused on teaching women how to be safe and how to keep not only themselves safe, but their families safe as well, and really focused on situational awareness.
Well, wow. I know that, as I said, I've met you, and I always like to kind of do a little bit of online stalking to whoever I'm going to talk to, even though I probably do know them. But you're a very, very impressive lady. And I had mentioned that you came up to Bangor and you did some safety training with some ladies from my company. And we also invited some real estate agent friends to do the training with us as well. And when going into this training, and I'm sure this is sort of the common thought, I thought, oh, I'm going to learn some badass moves from Autumn. I'm really going to be able to protect myself. Some big guy comes at me or whatever. And I didn't come away necessarily with any badass moves, but what I came away with was so much more. Can you talk to me a little bit about the message you try to get through on your trainings?
Yeah, absolutely. And I really appreciate you bringing that up. So the company's name is She's an Asset. And the reason why I created this company was I was going through a really hard time online. I experienced severe harassment and online bullying. And I was in this time of like trying to like reach on and grasp on the outside of me to make myself like feel whole again, to feel better. I'm like, somebody make me feel better because, these 100 Instagram accounts that are all making fun of me and all these memes and all these things. And all I was trying to do was really do good in the world for women. And it just felt like my whole world was crashing down. But I continued to be like, make me feel better, make me feel better, make me feel better. And then one day in the midst of like, I do yoga and I meditate. And I'm really spiritual because it's what saves me mentally and emotionally. So one day I'm on my yoga mat and I'm going through and I'm like, you know what? She's an asset. Like she's an asset. Like I'm the asset. We are all the asset in our lives. But what we do because society perpetuates that we are broken, this whole ideology that we are not whole, that we are flawed, and that we always need to continuously make ourselves better or fixed. That that was what was playing into like me trying to find somebody, something to make me feel better. And the idea of this company is I want every woman to know like you are the asset in your life. It's you. And through teaching women situational awareness, and I'm going to get there and we'll talk more about that, Bobbie. But to me, that is how I can have a very big impact on, girls, on women, and any man that will listen. But the idea is like I can have a very big impact to teach you that, look at all of the things that you can do. Here's how you can strike. Here's how you can get out of situations, but also here's how you can not be an easy target, right? An easy target for predators. Do these things and you become a hard target, and you're automatically an asset, um, in your life, but although also for those around you. So that's how She's an Asset was brought up or created. And what I'd like to just touch on that you said, Bobbie, is we focus a lot on situational awareness. And let me explain this to you. Because you brought up and you're like, Autumn, I thought I was gonna get some badass moves, right? And I do provide some, but here's what I know based on, I don't know, 20 years in the martial arts. I can spend 2 hours with you and I can teach you all these great moves. But if you never train them ever again, when shit hits the fan, you are not going to know them. You are going to resort to, oh my goodness, chaos and fear and panic and just, and anybody who's been in a stressful situation, that. So the idea with what we're doing is it's more of a preventative, right? So, we're talking to a lot of real estate agents, and in your class was real estate agents. So for me, will cater my classes custom to the audience. And so I remember in your class we talked a lot about, okay, so when you park your car, Are you doing a scan of your surroundings of who's there? What are the vehicles there? Is there anybody like that's kind of weird hanging out, whether it be in a parking lot or a driveway or wherever you're pulling into? What do you see? And when you park your car, does your car automatically unlock like mine does? Are you quickly locking your vehicle if you're not like gonna jump out? Most of real estate agents that I know have like a purse, a bag, they carry a bunch of things, your hands are full. And so that's going to take you a minute to get out of your vehicle. So while you're gathering your things, your vehicle should be locked because then you are not an easy target. So we have a lot of conversations like that. And I mean, I'd love to hear what you have to say, Bobbie, but in my mind, that's what sticks. And that is what is going to save somebody versus moves that you're probably going to forget.
That's absolutely what stuck with me, and we talked a lot at the office about it the next day, and everybody was very impressed and energized and absolutely loved the training because it hit a lot of marks. I mean, we, did some professional development, bonding with our coworkers and some of our clients, and I didn't expect to come away with the level of awareness that I did. My office is in downtown Bangor, which I've been in there 20 years, and there's been very few situations where I felt unsafe, but that doesn't mean I wasn't unsafe. I wasn't safe. I have this thing, and we talked about it a little bit in the class that, and I don't know if it's just women or just the way I am, but I feel like as I'm walking through, look at me, I'm a good person. I'm saying good morning to the, homeless guy. And you said, well, does that mean more to you than your safety? And I thought, no, I guess it shouldn't. Um, and I have to rewire my thinking. And I think a lot of women and people in general need to rewire their thinking. So that was my biggest takeaway. And we had some fun, and you showed us some moves, and that was really great too. But the takeaway was definitely sort of rewiring my thoughts when it comes to keeping myself safe.
And I think that's the biggest in my mind. That's like impact like really quick, right? So we all love results. We are in a day and age where we want results and we want results fast, right? Like I want to lose 10 pounds tomorrow. Like, like hello. But, and so for me, that is what I can, we can leave, our students with an impact very quickly. Like just like you said, rewiring your brain. And there's nothing wrong with saying hello to homeless people there, and there's nothing inherently bad about homeless people, right?
Oh,
But we
absolutely
all
not.
and but we also need to be we can say hi and we can be kind, but we also need to be like, right, watching what are their hands doing? Are they now following us? Are they now approaching us? Are there other people? What is this like? What are the surroundings that we're in? What are the weapons that are available? And like a lot of us don't think like that. We don't think that, like a bucket of salt could get turned into a weapon used against us, or if they have like a stick or whatever that, like we're not thinking that, right? Like like you said, we're thinking about saying hello and going on our way. But what we don't understand what other people's point of view or mental capacity is in. And I'm just gonna share something. Um, I can't remember if it was in 2023 or if it was in 2022, but I think it was in early 2023, and we had a terrible homicide down in Westbrook, Maine. And it was a mom and dad, and they had just moved here from out of state, and they had their children, two young children in the car, and there was a person who was having a mental, I don't know, situation that, but they didn't know it. And they smiled at this person. And then they smiled, but then they went on and they were like laughing and joking and like they were just literally having a great time. They were so happy to be in Maine. It really didn't have anything to do with this person. This person had a mental breakdown and killed the mom. I know they killed the mom, and I'm pretty sure he did kill the father in front of the two kids. Okay. So like they did nothing. It was unprovoked. They smiled and then they went on to laugh. And I'm not saying that this couple did anything wrong. They didn't. But what I'm saying is we don't know what other people's like where are they at mentally. So we always need to be on guard and prepared. And I feel like that makes people think that they can't relax, and that's not it. But I also think it makes people feel like, well, I'm a bad person if I'm just not, you know, nice to everybody. And I always just say, well, there's a difference between being kind and being nice, and you can be kind and respectful to everybody and still be prepared.
That's a great point. That's a great point. And I think that kind of shifting it towards the real estate industry, it is a client-based customer service, and there's a lot of competition. So these agents really strive to excel at their customer service, but that inherently can put them in unsafe situations.
Oh, absolutely. We had like such great conversations with the students in that came to your class, and just really about how, real estate agents will go to showings and they're all by themselves. Like they might go to, you know, who- I don't really know, but like towns way out, very rural, they're all by themselves. And it's like, how do we know that they're not getting set up? And I had wonderful conversations with a few of the women in your class saying, like, hey, I trusted my gut. I actually got out of that house and got out of that situation because something was wrong. And I think, if we talk about advice, and I know we'll get into it, but Bobbie, I think I really think that what happens is we don't listen enough to our intuition and we try to override it with logic. And I think that when we do that, we are asking for a lot of problems. And so if you are getting a strong gut feeling of like, something's not right, this person isn't right, this house doesn't feel right, like it's okay, just pause. Just pause. Everything's going to be okay. Just pause, get somebody else there, reschedule, even if it's like a few hours later, whatever you need to do to be safe, like your safety is of the utmost importance.
Absolutely. And real estate agents do market themselves. So they're on social media, they're on Facebook, they're out there. And in this day and age, which I know you're not in the real estate industry, but seller impersonation is a big thing. And we think of it more transactional, but that could also go towards targeting a real estate agent. I'm
Oh,
going dark. I'm going a little bit dark, but it's realistic.
oh yeah. Huge. I mean, and while I'm not, my background isn't in real estate, right? But I can absolutely relate and to, impersonating a police officer. So I want to say, like, I understand that, this is why we have to have all of our boxes checked as far as our safety, right? Like, this is why your situational awareness needs to be on point because we think of sometimes like the imitation just being online, like you just said, just to reiterate exactly what you said. But how do we know they're not like stalking, following you, keeping an eye on you? And maybe it just hasn't reached the stalking like point for like legally, but like they're keeping an eye on you. Like they know where you live, they know what you do. And the other thing is as I'm saying this is people tend to be creatures of habit, right? We tend to be creatures of habit. And what does that mean? Well, here's what it means. On Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, you have the exact same schedule. You are in your vehicle every single day by 7:15 because you know it's going to take you 45 minutes to get to where you need to be. And on the way, you're going to hit Starbucks or wherever, you're going to get gas. And you do the same thing every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Tuesday, Thursday, you do the exact same thing. Sundays, you go to church. Saturdays, you hit a spin class. You are so predictable. And people think nobody pays attention to that. I'm telling you that that is very wrong and is false. And to think that nobody is paying attention, if you are that predictable in your life and a person is imitating you, looking to imitate you, or just looking to stalk you, be around you, maybe, hurt you in some way, they know everything that you do. And the more predictable you are, the more of an easy target you are.
That's a great point because I notice things. and I'm not stalking anybody, but you see when you get your coffee, the same person there every morning, the same truck passes me every morning on the interstate. So if somebody was up to no good, they could certainly pick up on that. And then we add to that with all of our social media and everything that we share. And I do it too, but that's really a great point, Autumn. Like I said, inherently, real estate agents tend to put themselves, and actually, this could go for a lot of industries. I know as a closer, I've gone to people's homes many times by myself, and my office always knows where I am, and my husband always knows where I am because we have that on our phones. But again, it's part of your job, and you're trusting, and you're just going to get your job done. So we inherently do go to these remote locations, to people's homes, and more so real estate agents. It's a vacant home, at times it's out on a camp road, 10 miles in. We have a lot of remote properties, and inherently they're putting themselves in that situation. So what are some things that they could look for or watch for that should make them think twice, or maybe take that extra level of precaution?
Well, I think here's what I think. I think that we all need to have a plan. One of the biggest topics I teach about is creating like a chaos plan. And the reason why is because if we have a plan, then chaos doesn't tend to ensue, as it doesn't spiral, right? But things, unexpected things are going to happen. They're going to pop up. But if you're going over in your head, if this happens, then this is what I'm going to do. And in my classes, my students will hear me say, if this, then what? If you are practicing the if this, then what, um, with situations and scenarios all the time, then you're going to be less apt to get like thrown off guard. And here's what I mean by that. This is just an idea in my head. I'm if I'm a real estate agent and I have to go show a house and it could be empty, right? And it's been vacant and I'm going to rural Maine and not a lot of people. Things that I would be doing, I would make sure that I know what I have on me that I can use for a weapon. Now, I'm not saying that I don't know what the laws are for you guys specifically showing and carrying a concealed weapon. I do not know what the law is for that, but I'm not even saying a gun. I could turn pretty much anything into a weapon. And so I would be thinking about what I have on myself to turn into a weapon if I need it. I would be making sure that somebody knows exactly where I am and what I'm doing. There's this app called Life 360. I'm not saying you need to give that app out to everybody, but I mean, it will literally tell the people on the app, like your speed limit. It is so accurate with where you are. Find My Friends on Apple isn't that accurate. My husband and I use it as touch points, but like truthfully, it's not that accurate. Life 360 it's free and it's far more accurate. So I'd be making sure somebody has that so that they know where I am. I would also be paying attention and scanning as you're driving there, somebody following you who shouldn't be following you. Sometimes you're going to have like the person who maybe is coming to see the house following you, that person, whatever, right? But be paying attention to weird vehicles that you don't recognize that are following you. One of the most underrated spots on our vehicle that we like don't ever pay attention to is our rearview mirror. It is so underrated. We are not paying attention to who is following us, how long they've been following us, what that vehicle is, who's the operator, how many people in that vehicle. So I'd be paying attention to that. As I'm driving to the house, I would really be scanning, as I'm driving up, I'm scanning the yard, I'm scanning the driveway. I want to know all the vehicles there or the vehicles not there. I want to know all the people that are standing around. And you might be thinking to yourself, well, Autumn, there's not going to be anybody outside. Okay. So here's what I'm going to look for. I'm going to look for windows that are ajar or broken, doors that are ajar or broken. And I'm just going to be literally kind of doing like counter surveillance. Maybe you're going to do a walk around the whole house without like going in first and just scanning like what's going on. That way you don't have a squatter that's inside. You don't have somebody who's broken in and you're going to startle them and they're on a drug binge. And right, cuz like a lot of times, you know, people I can't speak for everybody, but here's what I've seen in my training education experiences. It's people aren't always out to kill somebody. Like we watch a lot of these like true crime documentaries and like we all think like, okay, there's a murderer, there's a murderer everywhere you look. But not a lot of times, I can't like I don't know the statistics, but it seems to be, from my opinion, is that it you know, aggravated assaults and murders are happening not always on purpose. It really doesn't happen on purpose, right? It's like you could be like startling somebody who's literally on a drug binge and they know that they're not supposed to be here. And in their mind, it's like this big deal. So if they like hurt you, then you're not going to call the cops or something, right? So it's like kind of like that simple. So we want to be preventing that as much as we can. And we do that by doing the steps that I'm telling you. Now, when you walk in, here's I'm going to back you up a little bit. Are you able to see the floor plan ahead of time? I'm not sure. I know that real estate agents have wonderful apps that you can like look and see like what people's criminal history is that you're dealing with and stuff. But like, have you gone onto Google Earth? Have you, I mean, it doesn't take long to just do a real quick, like, this is what it looks like. Here's the camera, here's escape routes, whatever. You can see where the doors are. Maybe you can take a look at the floor plan. Bobbie, does real estate agents, do they get the floor plan ahead of time? Do they know?
I think it depends on the property, how long ago it was built, that sort of thing. So I don't know for sure the answer to that, Autumn, but I'm sure that they can get a lot of information about the property prior to from public records. But the other interesting thing of that is somebody that might be targeting you can also have access to that information. So
Yeah.
that's a tough one, but I definitely appreciate the point of walking around and seeing what's going on. Is there anything that hits your gut or makes the hair in your arms stand up? I want to step back just a couple things. I picked up on something that you said that I think real estate agents would appreciate hearing about is a lot of times you're driving to a property and either the real estate agent has their client in the car with them, so they drive together, or they may follow. Do you have any thoughts on which would be a safer route with a client that maybe they've never met before?
I mean, I think it's a gut thing. I really do. I just think it's each individual. I think it's a gut thing. I think here's what I think. I think real estate agents, you guys tend to be very vulnerable in what you do. I just want to say police officers are very vulnerable too. If you want to kill a cop, it's not hard. Like straight up, they teach us that in the academy. We know that. Right. So I think that real estate agents you are a very vulnerable spot. You need to educate yourself on your own personal safety. So again, you need to know how to use your body. There's, things, and we talk about this in my classes, right? So you need to know how to use your body for weapons, and you need to know what to have in your vehicle for weapons. And the reason I say that, Bobbie, is because if you do have a client who's with you and it somehow turns into a shit show, then you can quickly, you're not gonna freeze and be like, oh my goodness, what do I do? You're gonna have created a plan. If this happens, then I'm gonna do this. If this, then what? Same thing if they're following you. Um, I don't I can say like I can build scenarios in my head where both go really bad to be straight. So in my mind, it's kind of like a gut thing, um, on which one would be better.
So take the time ahead of time to find out who you're working with to the best of your ability. And I've recommended when I go to sales meetings, and we're talking again more about seller impersonation transactional, but if somebody isn't willing to provide you with an ID, that you
Oh,
really need to question that. And again, it's a customer service client based business, and a lot of times you don't want to bother people, but that gets comes full circle back to your point of don't be easy. Don't be a target. And you can do it in a professional way, but any normal person, man, your husband, my husband, we would want women to be safe and to stay
yes.
safe, and they would totally understand why you might need to take the precautions ahead of time to do that. So that's a great point.
I can't even imagine a scenario where I would, and like I want, especially like my new real estate agents listening to this, like I can't even imagine a scenario where I would give a real estate agent a hard time for asking for my ID for any for any purpose like that. So if somebody is like that should be raising red flags. Like, whoa, I don't know, like this is weird. Like why are they giving me this is such a basic people who are doing that, just to give you an idea from my training education experience, where as a police officer, you're always asking for somebody's ID, like multiple times a day, multiple times an hour. I'm IDing people. People who don't want to give you their ID have something to hide.
I agree with that. I agree with that. But as a closer and a notary, I have had people that, why do you need that? They're fine, they're legitimate, they're in the closing room and they're at the table. But it's almost like they're being questioned. And it's like, it's the law, sir. I need to be able to prove who you are to sign these documents. But there are people that are just kind of stubborn. And I just worry that if somebody does give a little pushback, even if they're not a bad actor, that real estate agents might say, you know what, we'll get that later. We won't worry about that. So just a caution there that it's not always that they're up to any criminal activity, but they might just, and again, that's a difficult client. You might not want them anyway.
Well, and I think that's a good point, Bobbie. But I also think like you being able to take the time. I mean, that's just a communication thing, right? So here we go. If this, then what, right? So if we do have somebody who's like, well, why would you need that? And then you just explain to them, yeah, I know does seem kind of weird. And I totally understand. Here's why I do this, and I do this with all of my clients. I'm in a very vulnerable situation. I just like to know who I'm dealing with. Whatever, I need to have your information. It's literally for a safety thing, means nothing. I really appreciate you working with me. I know it feels a little weird. And then that person is probably going to be like, yeah, okay, it's weird. I don't like it. Here you go. Right. There's a difference between that, just like you said, versus somebody who's like, no, no, I'm not. Like, absolutely not. This is crazy. Okay. Well, then maybe that person just isn't for you. And trust your gut. It's another gut thing.
And it brings us back to the fact that there would even be any hesitation for them to ask that. And I don't know, do you have any tips how we can normalize that conversation around keeping ourselves safe, especially in the business aspect of it for those of us that do sometimes have to, again, inherently put ourselves in a position that could um, potentially be dangerous.
When it comes to the ID, like if somebody is refusing?
No, no, normalize the conversation in the industry, I guess, with uh, our employers and these brokerage owners and real estate company owners to make, especially young agents, but to make agents feel okay and to set some standards, even some regulations within their company to say, yeah, this is what you need to do and make it a priority to make sure that everybody stays safe.
Yeah, so I think it's having the conversation, right? Like that's one thing I really admire about you and what you're doing with your company as well as you had a lot of real estate agents, clients that you brought into our class, but it's really just I think it's having the conversations. I think that we can't put our head in the sand and pretend that, you know, we are not living in a world where we've always been living in a world like, and I just want to say this, we've always been living in a world where we do need to be paying attention. While, crime is up in 2023, was obviously the most violent year in Maine's history for a number of years. I think that we all need to understand that, you know, we just need to have these conversations. So it is having the conversations. It's normalizing that. It's normalizing how you feel. Like, oh, that made me feel uncomfortable. Talking with your coworkers, talking to people about like different situations that maybe you've had. I think a lot of times we don't. We try to have that Superman complex. I can speak for myself as being, a female police officer. I never wanted to talk about situations that I had been in that made me feel really uncomfortable because I'm like, I don't want to look weak. Here's the deal. When I finally got brave enough to be able to talk about it, I became educated through just conversations with people, senior people who've been there, who've done that. And I think those are good conversations. I think the more that we're having them within the industry, then us being on more alert is going to become the normal, right? And setting boundaries and respecting those, like, and setting the boundaries with clients and with the people, just in general. Like this is how I operate. This is how I do things. This is for my safety. If we're safety oriented and minded, I feel like, Bobbie, that opens up the conversation a little bit more. And also, we have to, as senior people, whatever your position is, let's really care about our younger people or our people that are out in the field. Let's like genuinely care. Cause let me just provide you a few statistics if you don't mind. I pulled them up for just Bangor. Okay, this is just Bangor, just to give you an idea. In 2023, Bangor had 302 assaults. That's just Bangor, and that's just reported. So you might as well double or triple that. Okay. We talk about, you know, there's an we talk about, let's see, um, property theft. You guys are all going to properties, you're all dealing with things. Just property thefts were 1,116. That was what's reported. Okay. We had 73 vehicle thefts. 73 vehicle thefts. This is just Bangor, right? So here's what we know. We know that things are happening, right? 313 calls of criminal mischief. That's causing damage to someone's property. Um, yeah, I mean, it's happening, it's there, and I feel like we have to care. Let's care about ourselves, right? But if we're leaders, let's care about our people. And you do that flawlessly, Bobbie. You obviously very much care about the people around you.
Well, I have been again in this business for a lot of years, and most of that time I've worked with a lot of the same real estate agents, and I consider them friends, and they're all people that I care about. But again, I care about women, and this we're talking, again about real estate agents, but this information could go to any woman. I have daughters in their 20s, and we all worry, and I that's why I want to say two things. The first thing is the statistics are eye opening and nobody likes to hear it, but we need to hear it because a lot of us, and myself included, live under this fake warm blanket of being in Maine. And Maine is wonderful. And, you know, even though there's crime everywhere, we we need to wake up and take the precautions. And that doesn't mean that there's going to be more crime happening. It just means that we're aware of it and we're taking care of ourselves.
I
So
love that you bring that up, Bobbie, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but
now
I want to tell
interrupt.
you another statistic. We had 53 homicides in 2023 in Maine. Okay. So that's up. Okay. Like if we just, and I know for some people, maybe you're like, well, that's not a lot. Well, that is, and that is a lot for Maine. And we are experiencing an uptick in crime and violent crime. And so you're right. We do need to take our heads out of the sand and be like, yeah, okay, so we love Maine. I have had the opportunity, such as many people listening, to travel the country. And I will tell you, I love coming back to Maine. There's nothing like getting off in our Jetland, our Portland Jetport and and being like, "Oh, I'm home," right? But it's still we can be home and we can be aware.
That's right. That's right. And the second point I wanted to make that I just appreciate so much is we talked about it a little before we started the interview was empowering women and how we all need to support each other and how we need to not make anybody feel bad for stepping up to protect themselves. And, you know, women of all ages. I love having somebody younger come into our company, and it keeps us all young, and we need to mentor them and support them and have more of a sisterhood. And I'm going to join your sisterhood. I was looking at that online. Tell me about that a little bit.
Yeah. So currently right now, it's called the Self-Protection Sisterhood. And so I'm really excited because we are even making that better. And before I go into that though, I do need to say this. I agree with you. I agree so much with you about that. And I'm gonna be honest. When I wasn't always super kind. When I was younger, I was very insecure. And I wasn't kind to other women, especially being in law enforcement. That industry was really cutthroat, and it was like, and you're really judgy. And people need to understand about cops. And I mean, you were a police wife, like you get this. Like we are paid to judge, and what I mean, like judge scenarios, judge situations. Like, is this going to go to crap? Like, where's the safety? Like, we're constantly being super critical of absolutely everything, and it definitely spills over into our coworkers and our place of employment. It really does. And then in law enforcement, actually only 12% of women make up law enforcement. There's only 12% of women. And so that's really few. It's really small. And so in Maine, we all go to the exact one police academy in Vassabro, which is very uncommon, just so you guys know. Because I know if you might not have any context to this, but in other states, they have multiple academies. So it's kind of rare that every single police officer has gone through the exact same one police academy. But because of that, we're a really small community here in Maine. We know everybody. It doesn't matter. I can tell you if I don't know who they are, I've heard of them. And if I don't, I will find somebody who can give me information from every cop down to from Elliott, Maine, all the way up to Ashland, the Caribou, Canadian border. So the thing about that is because we know everybody and there's so few women, Bobbie, I found myself being very judgmental of women at a very young age. And really, I just want to be clear, what I was judging was myself. And we don't see it that way. We see it as it's her. Ugh, she's a soup sandwich, right? Like she's too happy, she's too flirty, she's too pretty, she's too whatever. And what it took a lot of self-reflection for this. But what I realized is like, oh, wait a minute, she's making me feel badly about me, and I'm projecting it back to her and thinking and making it seem like it's her, but it's actually has nothing to do with her. She's just mirroring that to me. So I really love how you started this out. And we do need to be taking other women under our arms, in my opinion. Um I think the world and society is hard enough for women. We're in this really big transition of women working full time, and we have career women as well as they're raising families, and that's really hard, right? So I just think we all need to be supporting one another. So what I've created is, so my class, my She's an Asset, we have a fundamental, foundational class. It's the class that you took, Bobbie. It's been really great for businesses, for companies, for individuals as well. But and I mean, love to hear your opinion, but would you say it was like a team building, class?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Again, like I said, we came back to the office and everybody was energized. And you're absolutely perfect in the way that you do it because it's informational. Again, you gave us some practical. And again, we had some fun too. So
Thank you.
it was a great class.
Thank you. Yeah. So we do that. But here's the thing is that women are filling my inboxes and they're like, "Hey, knock knock, like that was great. We want to keep going. Like, what are you doing?" And so while we're establishing and we're building, I mean, my ultimate goal is to get a place, like to have, classes going up in Bangor and have classes going down in Southern Maine. Um, Ultimately all the time so that we can continue to educate and we can have women, creating that reflex of, okay, if somebody grabs you, you didn't just see the move once or twice, like now it's a reflex you've been training. We want to create that. But on the in between, as we're growing and we're building Bobbie, I created the Self Protection Sisterhood, which is a beautiful combination right now of we have our trainings. So a lot of the trainings that we've had in person, I have broken them up. So we have a library full of educational content that we have women taking with their families, which is really nice. And what we are, I'm really excited. This is the first place. This is your podcast. This is the first place I'm ever announcing this publicly. Um, what we are transforming this into specifically for Mainers is we're going to be also providing a monthly newsletter. And in that newsletter, we are going to be not only providing like educational, practical tips, tricks, tools, but we're going to be talking about real life scenarios, that have happened, that are happening, that have happened in Maine. And we're going to break them down. And they're going to be like case studies. And it's like, hey, so this happened in this town, like Fairfield, Maine. Here's what happened. A woman was followed and then she was assaulted and da 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 da. And we're going to talk about that. And I think why I'm so excited about that is I'm like, man, I really feel like that is going to be impactful for women everywhere in Maine to be able to be like, okay, I can no longer live in this idea that I'm safe everywhere. And by studying these case studies, it's going to raise flat red flags for you when you're now out and you read this, we talk about it, and now you're out and about and stuff starts happening that is like, oh, wait a minute, I'm being followed now. Now you're paying attention to the rearview mirror, now you're paying attention to this vehicle that's been following you for 15 minutes, and you're like, oh my goodness. And that's what happened in this case study, and like, she did this, but now I'm going to do this, I'm going to do the opposite. And so anyways, that's what it is, and I'm excited about it. Thank you for bringing it up.
Of course, and you're right. After the class, you and I stayed in contact, primarily just we wanted to try to put some stuff together for the real estate community, and I still want to try to work on that with you. But you want to keep it going, and it's empowering. I mean, just is a 2-hour class that we did, and just in that time, and I'm a relatively intelligent person, and I still was like, I do that. I do that unsafe thing or potentially unsafe thing, and I need to smarten up. And I literally had conversations with both of my daughters and said, "Hey, I just took this class." One of my daughters lives down in Florida, and she works in Jacksonville, so I worry about her all the time. The other one's in Fort Kent, so there's a little bit of a difference crime wise there. But I still worry about them both, and I want to keep them safe, and I want to keep everyone's daughters safe, and sisters and moms and wives, and that's why I'm so appreciative of what you're doing. And again, we've sort of tailored this to the real estate industry, but any woman listening can definitely, and men too as well, but can definitely benefit from this. So I'm so appreciative of you, Autumn. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate this, Bobby, more than you know, and especially to, get the word out there to every woman possible, and to also share with, their children. I'm really passionate about, these our preteens and our teenagers. I faced bullying growing up, and it was really bad. And obviously, I've dealt with it online, like I touched about earlier. And I feel like we need all girls to know that they are the assets in their lives, and we need to provide them with situational awareness training. We need to provide them, um, with as much information and knowledge to keep them safe, because studies tell us that 1 in every 3 women will or have faced assault, whether it be domestic or some sort of just violent assault. So we want our girls to be ready.
Absolutely. And I'm going to share all of your information so that everybody can check you out. And I really urge everybody to do that because it's well worth it. And it's so useful and so empowering. So I hope everybody jumps on board with us, right?
I agree, and I appreciate it. And you can find me at She's an Asset, absolutely, on anything, any platform. Have a podcast called She's an Asset on all social medias, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. She's an asset.
Perfect. Perfect. And you are an asset, and I appreciate you, sweetheart.
Thank you, Bobby. Likewise.
I can't thank Autumn Clifford enough for taking the time to come onto the podcast and talking to us all about keeping ourselves safe and situational awareness. And you can check Autumn out. Again, the name of her company is She's an Asset, or you can head over to the mainrealestateroundtable.com website and check out the show notes page. I guess what I want to leave you all with is please have Autumn come in for a training or a professional development day. And it doesn't matter if you're in the real estate industry or any type of business. Really, let's care about our employees, let's care about ourselves, and keep each other safe. This has been the Maine Real Estate Roundtable podcast with Bobbie Grenier. I hope you enjoyed today's discussion and will share this episode with a friend. And don't forget to leave a review and follow the podcast so you don't miss new episodes. The content of this podcast is for informational purposes and not intended as legal advice or representation by myself or any of the guests on the podcast. Thanks for listening, and until next time, keep it real.